So you join me here backstage at Rubix in Corby with a very good friend of mine and the legendary DJ, Mr. Judge Jules. How's it going?
I'm always a bit concerned by legendary. For legendary, yeah, substitute potentially old fool. Been around a while.
I did not say that. So, what have you been up to since we last saw each other?
Well, I kind of I DJ and make music at weekends, and I'm an entertainment lawyer during the week, which is an unusual combo on paper, but actually works very well because I've got so many kind of connections in my many years in the industry that I. About 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start being a lawyer during the week, but not being a boring old lawyer who sells property or kind of writes wills or defends criminals, actually, which might be quite interesting. But
I would have thought that would be quite exciting.
But just dealing with kind of music, Ibiza-based projects, kind of all the stuff that's true to my heart. So and kind of part lending legal skills, part lending kind of commercial experience to people's situations. So that's the kind of new element of my life, and of course I continue to release lots of records, touring. We're now in February. This is a month of kind of being mainly domiciled in the UK. Next month I'm going to Australia, going to Bahrain, going to America. So it's a kind of similar situation with DJing where I do a month at home because I do have a family, and I've never wanted to kind of do that permanent touring thing because I think it's very soulless. I've always tried to do a bit of UK stuff 1 month and a bit more kind of overseas stuff the following month, which has always been my sort of attempt. Assuming people want you, sometimes they just don't. You know, sit down.
Cool. And obviously it's not that new to you because I take it that's how you kind of coined your name, Judge Jules, from the legal side of things and what you were doing with that. How did you kind of invent that persona of Judge Jules?
Well, I didn't personally invent it. I think, like all good nicknames, they've got to be given to you by somebody else.
Okay.
You can't be called. I mean, I'd have to be an absolute.
Hi, I'm Judge Jules.
I'd have to be a real knob to have created that name for myself, wouldn't I?
Who created it?
Basically, I got into DJing through promoting illegal parties, and I was a law student at the time. I was 18, and the police would knock at the door. They would always be in squats, they'd be in disused warehouses, and I'd be when you're young, you're either fearless or B, very foolish, and I think the latter was probably the case with me. And they basically throw me in front of the police, and I'd sort of bamboozle the police with some limited legal knowledge of kind of squatters' rights and the fact we were allowed to have a party, which actually we weren't, but I frequently got away with it because I was prepared to go out and confront the police with it, and the judge thing came from there.
Right.
Obviously, in my legal capacity, I don't have a business card saying Judge Jules because there's a bit of a professional kind of misrepresentation issue to that.
Yeah, definitely. And is there much crossover? Do people recognise you as Judge Jules when you're representing them as a lawyer?
Yeah. What I do, I do basically 4 types of law. Relating to music, kind of tech. And some film stuff as well, and I just do kind of brand protection, loads of recording artists, their contracts and stuff, and sort of commercial advice, and that's all I do. So I'm kind of dealing with people in our sphere, and I'm dealing with a lot of the friends I've kind of built up over the years. So it sounds a bit weird saying that you're a lawyer and a DJ, but actually you would be surprised.
Kind of like a teacher and a DJ. So obviously you've had a career that spanned several decades and associated heavily with Radio 1. Now you've moved away from Radio 1, where are you kind of planning on heading this year? What are your plans for the rest of 2014?
I've had a second syndicated radio show that I've had. I think I'm up to, I think it's episode 530, so I've had a second syndicated radio show for over 10 years, which goes out on about, last count, somewhere between 50 and 100 stations around the world.
Sure.
I've also got a national radio show in America as well, which I've had for the last year. So that kind of ticks along nicely. I mean, I wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. It's just staying relevant, producing interesting tunes, and loving the DJing as much as ever before. Because ultimately you can't fool anybody.
Sure.
If you fall out of love with it, I think people spot it straight away. I mean, I might not be the crazed, drunken party animal that I once was.
I have no idea what you're on about.
But I still have a good time.
That's really good to hear. And obviously you just mentioned your music. What are you working on at the moment, music-wise? music-wise?
Well, you're always, I suppose, music-wise, you're 2 steps ahead. I've got a single out called Modulation, which is the most recent one. Then I've got another one out called Monte Carlo, which is probably named after the place I'll never be able to afford to live.
Cool. Okay. Well, what have you got in store for us this evening?
Well, do you know what? We've come upstairs here and we're in the back room, and it's actually quite nice to have the luxury of being sort of taken in the back way. There we say it. Let's describe it slightly differently. But so I haven't actually heard what John Please Women, who's on before me, is playing, and I don't think you can kind of race onto the decks and completely ignore what the person before you is doing. That's not my way at all. So, but I haven't actually heard what's going on downstairs because we came in by the exit.
Right.
By the upstairs.
Okay. And UK gigs wise, where are you for the rest of the month or the next few weeks?
Next, I'm doing something in Southampton, something in Northern Ireland, and something in Scotland. I think over the next couple of weeks.
So still really hectic schedule. And overseas, Ibiza this year.
Yeah, Ibiza, Mallorca, the kind of the resorty stuff. You'd have to literally drag me away from Ibiza.
Sure.
Although obviously, Ibiza's changed significantly in the last 10 years, but thankfully, Judgment, my brand, has been a big part of the fabric of the British side of Ibiza.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And finally, I mean, obviously you've played for me for several years now, not just here but Coventry, the Isle of Wight. What are your kind of memories of Classique and the parties that you've been out of mine or around the country, really?
Well, I mean, obviously the majority of them have been in Coventry, and Coventry is a city in Britain, and basically when I think of Coventry, I think of Classique, and I know that you've kind of slightly moved away from there, but you're still very much in a similar region of Britain.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite an achievement to sort of indelibly stamp your mark on a particular region in Britain, because not many promoters do that.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of DJs, you are synonymous with that part of Britain, which is an achievement for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for speaking to me, Jules. Obviously, it's an honour to have you here again this evening. Several times appearance for Classique. We look forward to hearing your set later.
Thank you.
Judge Jules, everyone, make some noise.